High in the icy mountains of Silver Pine, Montana, veterinarian Claire Sheridan discovers a wounded German shepherd nearly buried beneath a raging snowstorm. As she rushes closer, her heart stops. It's Scout, the dog Badaam she once rescued years ago, believed lost forever. But Scout isn't alone. He's desperately trying to tell her something. Is Claire ready to risk everything to follow Scout into a blizzard, to uncover a secret hidden deep?
The town of Silver Pine, nestled quietly in the embrace of Montana's northern mountains, seemed to sleep beneath the thick blanket of snow that had been falling relentlessly for days. The quaint houses with their timber-framed windows, normally aglow with warmth, were now darkened, silhouetted beneath the oppressive whiteout of the storm. Trees stood stiff and frozen, their branches burdened by layers of fresh snow, creating an eerie landscape that stretched endlessly into the night. The only signs of life were the dim streetlights casting pale, diffused pools of yellow light on icy roads, and the occasional gusts of wind howling mournfully through empty streets. Claire Sheridan adjusted her grip on the steering wheel, leaning forward slightly as if willing herself to see more clearly through the blizzard whipping violently around her small SUV. Claire was 37, with gentle hazel eyes shadowed by fatigue and framed by long, slightly wavy chestnut hair, typically tied back loosely in a practical ponytail. Tonight, exhaustion deepened the lines etched around her mouth, usually softened by a comforting smile. Her slender, athletic figure was wrapped warmly in her practical navy blue veterinary scrubs beneath a thick winter parka. Claire was known throughout Silver Pine not only as a competent veterinarian, but as someone who never turned away from helping any animal or person in need. But despite her kindness, Claire carried an ever-present shadow of sorrow. 10 winters prior, she'd lost her younger sister, Anna, to an avalanche, an accident she'd blamed herself for, unable to move past the guilt and grief completely. The heater in the car buzzed softly, offering limited relief from the bitter chill that seeped through every crevice of the vehicle. Claire squinted through the windshield, the road barely visible beneath a fresh coat of snow. It had been a particularly exhausting shift at Silver Pine Animal Clinic. 2 emergencies, a cat named Milo suffering from a car accident, and an elderly dog named Bear with acute respiratory distress, had left her drained but relieved, both patients now stable. Claire had stayed late to ensure their safety, sending her assistant, young and bubbly Jess Richards, home early to avoid traveling in the worsening storm. As Claire rounded a familiar curve, her headlights flickered across something dark, nearly hidden beneath the fresh snowfall beside the road. Her heart lurched, instantly alert. Slowing carefully, she maneuvered the vehicle onto the shoulder, tires crunching into the compacted snow. Her hands shook slightly as she parked and grabbed her flashlight, stepping cautiously outside. A sharp gust of wind snatched at her coat, sending icy needles of snow stinging against her cheeks, but Claire barely noticed, driven forward by urgency. She approached slowly, breath fogging heavily in the frigid air. The beam of her flashlight trembled slightly as she moved closer, illuminating fur, thick, matted, and crusted with snow. The animal was curled up tightly, almost indistinguishable from the surroundings, except for its shallow, labored breaths. Kneeling, Claire gently brushed snow from the dog's head, revealing a familiar, dignified face, strong, intelligent, and heartbreakingly gaunt. She inhaled sharply, her pulse quickening with shock and disbelief. It couldn't be. Carefully lifting the dog's head, she exposed a faded brown leather collar, worn and cracked with age. Her fingers shook as she turned the metal tag toward the flashlight's glow. Her chest tightened painfully at the engraved letters, Scout. Memories flooded Claire instantly. Scout as a young pup, playful, endlessly curious, a fearless German shepherd she'd rescued 3 years ago from abandonment near Bear Creek. His fur, now tangled and matted, once gleamed with health and pride. Scout had large, expressive amber eyes, intelligent and warm, eyes that had instantly captured Claire's heart. After nursing him back to health, Scout had quickly become her shadow at the clinic, beloved by every visitor, especially the town's children. A year later, with heavy reluctance, Claire had agreed to let Scout join Silver Pine's search and rescue team, trusting his instincts and intelligence could save lives. Scout had thrived until tragedy struck. 2 years ago, a devastating avalanche on Thunder Ridge had buried part of the rescue team, taking Scout and his handler into its icy depths. Only Scout's handler had been found, badly injured. Scout was lost, presumed dead. Yet here he lay, improbably alive. Claire stroked Scout's fur tenderly, her throat tightening. "Scout," she whispered softly, as tears pricked her eyes, mingling with snowflakes clinging to her eyelashes. His eyes fluttered open weakly, meeting hers with instant recognition, though clouded with pain. She knew immediately that he was barely holding on. "You're safe now," she murmured, forcing steadiness into her voice, her mind snapping into action. She quickly retrieved a woolen blanket from her car, wrapping Scout gently. Despite her slender frame, adrenaline lent her strength, allowing her to lift him carefully into the back seat. The dog's breathing was shallow, barely noticeable beneath her trembling hands. On the drive back to the clinic, Claire's mind raced. Questions haunted her, questions without answers. How had Scout survived alone in the harsh wilderness for 2 years? Why had he suddenly appeared tonight, at this spot, almost as if waiting specifically for her? Her knuckles whitened around the steering wheel, anxiety rising with each passing second. She pulled into the deserted clinic parking lot, tires sliding slightly on the slick ice. Inside, Scout barely moved as Claire carried him into the softly lit examination room. The gentle hum of fluorescent lights mixed with the distant howl of the storm outside, creating a solemn sanctuary within the clinic walls. Carefully, she placed Scout onto the padded exam table, hurriedly removing the snow-soaked blanket to assess his injuries clearly. She noted deep scratches along his legs and body, and one leg was clearly swollen and possibly fractured. Claire worked methodically, her hands steady despite the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. Scout lay quietly, barely responsive to her careful touches. The 4 fluids slowly dripped, antibiotics administered, wounds gently cleaned. As Claire leaned closer, murmuring softly to soothe him, Scout's amber eyes met hers again, a spark of determination flickering briefly, unmistakable even now. "You're going to be okay," Claire whispered fiercely, as much to herself as to him. Yet, deep down, anxiety lingered. Scout's condition was dire. His survival this long was miraculous, but his body was severely weakened. Still, Claire refused to consider failure. Scout had come back for a reason, and she wouldn't lose him again. As the storm raged on, snowflakes relentlessly battering against the clinic windows, Claire gently stroked Scout's fur, lost deep in thought. She didn't notice the tears trailing silently down her cheeks, a mix of relief, fear, and hope. Her heart tightened, realizing Scout had returned on this night, amidst a storm reminiscent of the tragic day she lost Anna, as if fate itself was offering her another chance at redemption. The wind outside intensified, shaking the building slightly. In the distance, the faint echo of sirens pierced the night. Claire felt the exhaustion seeping into her bones as dawn broke over Silver Pine, the blizzard having finally eased into an eerie silence. The animal clinic, bathed in the soft amber glow of early morning, was unusually quiet save for the rhythmic beeps of monitors and the shallow, irregular breaths of Scout, lying unconscious on the recovery table. Claire's eyes, bloodshot and heavy from lack of sleep, never strayed far from Scout's fragile form. His fur had dried into uneven patches, revealing numerous scars hidden beneath thick, tangled layers. The swelling around his left hind leg had worsened overnight despite her emergency intervention, and Claire could not shake the dreadful feeling that Scout might not survive another surgery. Outside, through frost-patterned windows, Claire watched the first rays of daylight brush over snow-laden rooftops, illuminating a town waking anxiously after the storm. She rose stiffly, running her hand soothingly over Scout's thick, coarse fur one more time before stepping into the clinic's reception area, her shoulders hunched against the weight of worry. Just as Claire filled a fresh mug of coffee, the clinic door chimed, and Ethan Marshall entered, snow dusting his broad shoulders and tangled in his short, peppered beard. Ethan was tall, ruggedly built from years spent working as a mountain rescue volunteer. His graying dark hair and calm, piercing blue eyes reflected both resilience and an underlying warmth. Despite losing his wife several years ago to illness, Ethan remained a steady, compassionate presence in Silver Pine, quietly offering help wherever needed without ever drawing attention to himself. Claire felt a rush of gratitude seeing Ethan now, knowing instinctively he'd heard about Scout. Ethan approached her silently, glancing toward the room where Scout rested. "Heard you found him last night," he said, his deep voice gentle. Claire nodded, emotions tightening her throat. Ethan's expression softened further. "How is he?" "Critical," Claire admitted quietly, gripping her coffee mug as if to anchor herself. "I managed to stabilize him, but the internal injury's the frostbite. It's severe." Ethan placed a reassuring hand briefly on Claire's shoulder, his touch steady. "Scout's tough. If anyone can pull him through, it's you." Their quiet moment of solidarity was broken abruptly by the wail of distant sirens, slicing sharply through the stillness. Claire's heart leaped instinctively, anxiety prickling her senses. Ethan's face grew somber. "Something else happened," he murmured, moving quickly toward the window. Together, they watched Sheriff Hank Larson's police cruiser skid to a halt outside the clinic, its emergency lights casting a restless blue and red pattern across the snowdrifts. Sheriff Larson stepped out quickly, his burly figure silhouetted by the rising sun. Hank was an imposing man in his late 50s, with broad shoulders and a lined, weathered face beneath his Stetson hat. Despite his gruff exterior, Hank's deep-set brown eyes revealed a man deeply committed to protecting Silver Pine. He entered the clinic swiftly, stamping snow from his boots, urgency tightening his jaw. "Claire, Ethan," Hank began without preamble, his gravelly voice strained. "Alice Reynolds is missing. Last seen yesterday afternoon near Ridgeview Elementary. We've searched all night, but the storm." He paused, frustration evident. "We need more help, and possibly Scout if he's stable enough." Claire's breath caught painfully. Alice Reynolds, 9 years old, was the cheerful, blonde-haired daughter of Maggie Reynolds, a beloved third-grade teacher. Alice was bright-eyed, inquisitive, and known for her endless curiosity, often seen exploring the edges of town or poking around Claire's clinic with joyful fascination. "Scout can't," Claire said sharply, her protective instinct flaring. Then softer, struggling with guilt, "He's barely hanging on." Ethan stepped forward, gently intervening. "We'll find her, Hank. I'll join the search immediately." Claire nodded, eyes clouded with concern. "Keep me updated, please." Ethan gave her a reassuring look before following Hank swiftly out into the snow. The clinic felt unbearably lonely as Claire returned to Scout's side. She sank into the chair beside him, whispering softly, "You always wanted to save everyone, didn't you?" She thought of Scout's proud posture when he first joined the rescue team, his unwavering loyalty, the intelligence gleaming brightly in his eyes. Now his body lay limp, each breath a fragile effort. Claire's thoughts drifted back to her younger sister Anna, bright, vibrant Anna, lost tragically beneath an avalanche years ago. The shadow of guilt returned, cold and heavy. Scout represented not just another life to save, but a chance at redemption, a chance to heal a wound Claire had carried far too long. Hours passed slowly, tension coiling inside Claire with every muted update Ethan sent via texts. Footprints found, then lost again in drifting snow. A torn scarf, identified as Alice's, snagged on a branch deep in the woods. Claire felt her pulse quicken, imagining the small, frightened girl alone in the frozen wilderness. The clinic door chimed again, and Jess Richards hurried inside, her youthful face flushed from the cold. Jess was in her early 20s, petite, with bright auburn curls that bounced energetically as she moved. Known for her cheerful disposition and unwavering optimism, Jess's infectious laughter usually lifted Claire's spirits. Today, her usually bright green eyes were clouded with worry. "I heard about Alice," Jess said softly. "How's Scout?" "Holding on," Claire replied wearily. Jess moved closer, offering comfort. "Scout's a fighter. He'll make it." Claire nodded gratefully. Jess's sincerity was comforting, though worry for Alice still dominated her thoughts. Jess suddenly turned toward the window, eyes widening. Claire followed her gaze to see Maggie Reynolds outside, standing stiffly near the clinic entrance. Hesitation etched across her delicate features. Maggie was slender and fair-skinned, her pale blonde hair tucked messily beneath a knitted hat. Known as gentle, patient, and devoted to her students, Maggie now appeared fragile, eyes swollen from sleeplessness and tears. Jess opened the door quickly, ushering Maggie inside. "Claire," Maggie whispered, trembling visibly. "Please help them find Alice." Claire felt helpless, desperate to do something more. "Ethan is leading the search. Everyone's doing their best," she reassured gently. Maggie's gaze fell on Scout, eyes widening with sudden hope. "Scout always found people before, do you think?" Claire hesitated painfully. "He's too weak, Maggie." But even as she spoke, Scout stirred slightly, as if sensing their distress. Claire moved swiftly to his side, astonished as Scout's eyes fluttered weakly open, fixing directly on Maggie with fierce determination. Claire's breath hitched sharply, recognizing immediately the spark of purpose reigniting in his gaze. Suddenly, despite logic telling her otherwise, Claire felt an overwhelming certainty that Scout was trying to communicate. His paw twitched slightly, then stretched toward Claire, a faint but clear gesture. Jess and Maggie watched in awe. Claire knelt beside Scout, heart racing. "Scout," she murmured gently, voice trembling. "Do you know where Alice is?" Scout's amber eyes never wavered from hers, his body tense with determination despite his frailty. Claire's pulse quickened with hope and anxiety intertwining tightly. She realized Scout was attempting to lead them, desperate to rescue Alice despite his own precarious state. Outside, the sunlight had strengthened, illuminating paths obscured by last night's storm. Claire knew they faced an impossible decision. Scout's condition was critical. Taking him outside could prove fatal. Yet his unwavering gaze spoke clearly. Scout wanted to help, needed to help. Claire inhaled deeply, glancing from Scout to Maggie's pleading eyes. Her heart hammered fiercely, torn between fear and desperate hope. Scout gave another weak but deliberate push against her palm, and Claire knew the decision had already been made. Scout had survived for a reason, and she couldn't deny his purpose. "We're going," she whispered resolutely. Jess and Maggie exchanged hopeful, anxious glances, recognizing Claire's unwavering determination. Claire carefully wrapped Scout in a thick woolen. Claire tightened her grip around Scout as they approached Ethan's rugged truck, her heart thumping painfully against her ribs. The mid-morning sky darkened ominously as clouds gathered once more, threatening another storm. Ethan hesitated, skepticism flickering briefly across his usually calm, reassuring face. Claire caught his gaze, steady but pleading, and Ethan gave an understanding nod, quickly opening the passenger door. Claire placed Scout gently on the seat, mindful of his injured leg, his body trembling slightly, but eyes alert and strangely determined. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat silently, his jaw tense as he navigated the icy roads toward the dense woods on Silver Pine's outskirts. Scout lay quietly, his amber eyes staring ahead with intense focus, ears pricked as if catching sounds beyond human perception. Claire ran her fingers soothingly over Scout's thick coat, trying to ease her own anxiety. As the truck bumped across the frozen landscape, memories flooded Claire, vivid and merciless. The forest ahead had haunted her dreams for a decade, since the day she'd lost Anna beneath the crushing weight of an avalanche. Anna, her vibrant, irrepressible sister with fiery auburn curls and mischievous green eyes that had always sparkled with curiosity and laughter. Anna, who had trusted Claire to protect her and whose loss had fractured Claire's world beyond recognition. Claire swallowed hard, the ache in her chest raw, the ghost of that day as real now as then. Ethan glanced at her quietly, sensing the turmoil behind her pale, tense features. "We'll find Alice," he said softly, his voice deep and steady. "We won't let history repeat itself." Claire nodded, drawing strength from Ethan's quiet resolve, his empathy rooted deeply in his own pain from losing his wife. Ethan understood loss, she knew, and it forged a silent bond between them that words could never capture. The truck slowed as the snow-covered trail narrowed and ended abruptly at the forest edge. Several townsfolk were already gathered, bundled in thick coats, shovels and lanterns clutched tightly. Among them stood Deputy Sam Carter, a lean, wiry man in his early 30s with sandy blonde hair, cropped short and intelligent brown eyes behind square-rimmed glasses. Sam was a quiet man, meticulous and reliable, known for his resourcefulness and practical mind. He approached Ethan quickly, his steps crunching on the fresh snow. "Storm's coming back fast," Sam reported urgently. "We haven't found anything yet. Alice could be anywhere by now." Ethan nodded, scanning the looming forest thoughtfully. "We have Scout now," he said, motioning to the wounded German shepherd in Claire's arms. Sam's eyes widened slightly with surprise, clearly recognizing the famed rescue dog who had disappeared years ago. "He can track." Claire hesitated, anxiety knotting her stomach. "He's hurt badly," she admitted softly, "but he's determined. I think he knows something we don't." As if understanding her words, Scout perked up suddenly, ears flicking forward, his gaze intense toward the shadowy forest. Ethan exchanged a knowing glance with Sam and nodded resolutely. "We trust Scout," Ethan affirmed firmly. "Let's move quickly." The group moved cautiously into the dense woods, Claire cradling Scout protectively as she followed Ethan's sure steps. Tall, snow-heavy pines stretched endlessly, their thick trunks partially obscured by swirling snowflakes, the wind whispering ghostly secrets among branches. With each step, the past tightened its grip around Claire's heart, the landscape eerily similar to the day she'd lost Anna. Her breath quickened, and anxiety clawed at her chest. Scout shifted suddenly in her arms, emitting a low growl, his body tensing sharply. Claire froze instinctively, straining her ears. A faint, distant noise carried through the storm. Soft, muffled cracking, possibly branches breaking beneath the weight of snow or something heavier moving through the underbrush. Scout whined urgently, his gaze locked desperately onto Claire's, imploring. "What is it, Scout?" she whispered, heart racing. Scout squirmed, struggling weakly but insistently, forcing Claire to kneel and carefully set him onto the ground. Ethan and Sam stopped ahead, turning back questioningly as Scout staggered upright, wobbling unsteadily on 3 legs. His injured hind leg hung uselessly, yet Scout appeared determined, sniffing the snow-covered ground intently, before limping forward with stubborn purpose. Claire followed closely, anxiety twisting painfully in her chest with each labored step Scout took. Their slow progress was soon hindered as the storm roared back with sudden ferocity. Snowflakes whipped violently around them, visibility dropping dramatically. Ethan shouted over the rising wind, barely audible. "We have to head back. The storm's too strong." Claire's heart sank deeply, recognizing the danger, yet unable to deny Scout's relentless urgency. Scout paused momentarily, ears pricking suddenly toward a cluster of rocks half hidden beneath dense brush and heavy snowdrifts. His whines intensified, pawing desperately at the frozen earth. Ethan approached quickly, sensing Scout had found something crucial. Claire knelt beside Scout, brushing snow away hastily, her breath fogging with frantic exertion. Her fingers trembled as they unearthed a small, handmade charm bracelet, unmistakably Alice's. Ethan exhaled sharply, hope reigniting his exhausted features. "She must have passed this way," he confirmed urgently. Scout gazed upward, body shivering violently now, exhaustion evident yet eyes still blazing with desperate intent. Ethan turned grimly toward Claire. "We can't risk Scout any further," he said firmly. "Let's him take him back to safety. You and I can follow the tracks." Claire hesitated painfully, torn by protective instinct and trust. Scout collapsed heavily against her side, his breaths ragged and shallow. Reluctantly, she nodded, eyes burning with unshed tears as she whispered softly to Scout, "You've done enough, boy. Rest now." Deputy Sam Carter gently lifted Scout into his arms, Scout's amber eyes never leaving Claire's face, conveying an unspoken promise. As Sam disappeared back toward town, Ethan touched Claire's arm reassuringly, silently urging her forward. Together, they followed faint impressions deeper into the forest, fighting mounting exhaustion and freezing winds. Hours passed painfully slow, darkness creeping steadily through the trees. Claire's memories threatened to overwhelm her. The echo of Anna's laughter, the sudden roar of collapsing snow, her own desperate screams lost within chaos. She stumbled, leaning heavily against a tree, breath hitching sharply. Ethan steadied her gently, voice calming amidst the storm. "Claire," he murmured softly, understanding shining through his eyes. "We can do this. Alice needs us." Claire nodded shakily, drawing strength from Ethan's unwavering support, pushing aside the haunting past. She straightened resolutely, determination rekindled fiercely within her heart. Just ahead, a faint sound carried through the wind, a weak, frightened voice calling softly for help. Claire's pulse quickened sharply. "Alice," she whispered urgently. Ethan nodded, leading swiftly through the blizzard toward the terrified cries. In the shadows beneath an ancient pine, Claire glimpsed small, trembling limbs, the pale face of Alice Reynolds tear-streaked and terrified, huddled tightly against the trunk. Ethan reached Alice first, comforting words soothing her panic. Claire exhaled raggedly, relief flooding her exhausted body. But as they lifted Alice gently, wrapping her in Ethan's heavy coat, the sun had fully disappeared behind the mountains, plunging Silver Pine into an ominous twilight. The storm, relentless in its fury, intensified once again. Claire stood in the small surgery room at the animal clinic, feeling the oppressive weight of decisions pressing upon her chest. Scout's condition had deteriorated rapidly since returning from the forest, his breathing shallow, heartbeat weak. His body lay limp beneath the sterile, unforgiving glow of overhead lights, fur dull and matted, each inhale painfully labored. Claire's fingers gently brushed his side, feeling the irregular rise and fall beneath her trembling palm. She knew his injuries required urgent surgical intervention, something she'd hoped desperately to avoid given the clinic's limited equipment. Jess Richards hovered anxiously nearby, her usual vibrant optimism dampened by worry. "Claire," she whispered softly, green eyes wide with concern. "He doesn't have much time left." Claire nodded, a deep ache forming behind her temples. "We'll have to operate now," she decided firmly, heart hammering with uncertainty. Just then, the clinic door burst open, a harsh gust of icy wind rushing inside. Deputy Sam Carter stood in the doorway, face pale beneath his windburned cheeks, breath ragged. "Ethan's missing," he reported urgently. "He was bringing Alice back, but got separated in the blizzard. Alice made it safely to town, but Ethan hasn't returned." Claire's stomach dropped painfully, dread tightening her throat. Ethan was trapped somewhere out there, alone and vulnerable amidst the storm's wrath. Jess looked quickly from Claire to Sam, sensing the impossible dilemma Claire faced. "You can't leave Scout," Jess murmured hesitantly, voice strained. "He needs you." Claire's gaze moved between Scout's fragile form and the raging snowstorm beyond the window, knowing Ethan's survival depended on immediate action. Her heart fractured painfully, torn between saving Scout, the loyal companion who'd risked everything for her, and Ethan, whose calm presence had quietly become essential to her sanity and strength. Claire turned resolutely, facing Jess with determination masking her internal turmoil. "We'll start Scout's surgery immediately," she instructed sharply, already preparing instruments with practiced efficiency. "Jess, assist me." As Claire swiftly scrubbed in, she fought the rising tide of fear gripping her heart. Thoughts of Ethan, injured and freezing, threatened to shatter her resolve. Yet, beneath her fingertips, Scout's faint pulse reminded her of a duty equally undeniable. She had already lost so much. She refused to lose either of them tonight. Scout's surgery began quickly, Claire's skilled hands moving decisively, her focus narrowing entirely on the delicate work of repairing internal injuries. Jess stood silently across from her, face pale but resolute, assisting expertly despite evident anxiety. The room filled with tense silence, punctuated only by rhythmic beeps from monitoring equipment and Scout's labored breathing. As Claire's hands worked tirelessly, her mind continually drifted toward Ethan, stranded somewhere amidst the storm, injured or worse. Panic surged briefly, causing her fingers to tremble slightly. Jess placed a reassuring hand gently on her wrist, offering quiet strength. Claire steadied, silently grateful for Jess's unwavering support. Meanwhile, deep within the snow-covered forest, Ethan Marshall struggled through relentless winds, clutching his side where pain burned fiercely from a sharp fall earlier. He'd slipped while guiding Alice back toward town, twisting awkwardly onto a hidden patch of ice beneath deep snow. Ethan was disoriented, vision blurring with cold and fatigue, yet driven onward by sheer determination. His dark hair was crusted with snow and ice, his muscular frame shivering violently beneath layers insufficient against the bitter chill. He paused briefly beneath a towering pine, catching his breath, eyes squinting desperately through swirling snowflakes, searching for familiar landmarks. The storm had erased every recognizable feature, trapping him hopelessly within its icy grasp. As Ethan leaned heavily against the tree trunk, thoughts of Claire surfaced, providing fleeting warmth amidst numbing cold. Her quiet strength and unwavering compassion had touched something deeply hidden within him, awakening emotions long suppressed since losing his wife. Ethan's jaw tightened stubbornly, refusing surrender despite the storm's brutality. He needed to return, not just for himself, but for Claire, whose wounded heart had begun slowly healing beside his own. Back at the clinic, Scout's surgery reached a critical moment. Claire paused briefly, assessing carefully reconstructed tissues and meticulously placed sutures. Scout's vital signs hovered precariously, heartbeat faint but stable. Relief mingled cautiously within Claire's chest, though uncertainty lingered, his survival far from assured. Jess glanced toward Claire, admiration evident. "He's strong," she whispered softly. "Like you." Before Claire could respond, the clinic door swung open once more, revealing an unfamiliar face, a tall, wiry man with short-cropped silver hair and a weathered face. His piercing gray eyes were sharp, intense yet compassionate. The heavy winter jacket marked him clearly as a professional rescuer. "Name's Frank," he introduced curtly. "I'm from the county search and rescue. We've mobilized teams to find Ethan. Sheriff Larson told me you'd know exactly where he might be headed." Claire quickly described Ethan's intended route, hope rekindling fiercely within her exhausted heart. Frank nodded sharply, determination etched deeply into his rugged features. "We'll find him," he promised firmly before disappearing swiftly back into the storm. Minutes dragged into torturous hours, each passing second stretching Claire's fragile nerves painfully taut. Scout lay still, breathing slowly strengthening, vital signs gradually stabilizing, a testament to Claire's skill and determination. Yet, her anxiety persisted, thoughts continually returning to Ethan, stranded somewhere amidst darkness and cold. Finally, the clinic phone rang sharply, startling both women. Claire answered hastily, voice trembling with tension. "Claire Sheridan," she breathed anxiously. "This is Frank," the rescuer reported, his deep voice steady yet comforting. "We found Ethan. He's hurt, hypothermic but stable. We're bringing him directly to you." Claire sank weakly into the nearest chair, relief overwhelming her senses. Ethan was safe, Scout alive. Jess squeezed her shoulder gently, sharing silent gratitude. Soon after, Ethan arrived, face pale beneath layers of blankets, eyes hazy with exhaustion, yet reassuringly lucid. Claire rushed immediately to his side, hands trembling as they gently touched his cold, bruised face. Ethan managed a weak smile, his fingers brushing hers briefly in silent gratitude. "Scout?" he asked softly, voice hoarse from exposure. "He's recovering," Claire assured gently, emotion tightening her throat. Ethan exhaled slowly, eyes closing briefly with relief. Claire watched Ethan closely as he rested, sensing something profound had shifted within herself amidst tonight's harrowing ordeal. She'd faced her deepest fears, choosing bravery despite impossible circumstances. For the first time in years, hope stirred tentatively within Claire's heart, fragile yet undeniably present. Ethan's eyes opened slowly again, meeting Claire's steady gaze warmly. Gratitude and something deeper reflected clearly. Claire squeezed his hand gently, silently promising him and herself that healing was possible, not just physically but emotionally too. Across the room, Scout stirred weakly beneath warm blankets, amber eyes flickering briefly open, sensing Claire's presence nearby. Claire glanced toward Scout, feeling overwhelming gratitude for his resilience, courage, and loyalty. Scout had guided her through darkness toward hope, proving redemption possible, even amidst deepest wounds. Tonight marked a turning point for Scout, Ethan, and herself, a fragile yet powerful moment of renewed strength, connection, and the storm had finally begun to relent, leaving Silver Pine draped in a thick, silent blanket of fresh snow. The rising sun painted the horizon with subtle strokes of pink and gold, pushing gently against the retreating night. At the animal clinic, Claire Sheridan stood at the window, watching dawn illuminate the town she had grown to love. Beside her, Scout lay quietly on a makeshift bed of thick blankets, his chest rising and falling with a newfound steadiness. Though exhaustion still lingered, his amber eyes had regained their familiar spark, focused intently on Claire as if silently pleading with her. Sheriff Hank Larson stepped cautiously into the room, shaking fresh snow from his heavy jacket. His imposing figure loomed large in the small clinic, his gray-streaked hair hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, face weathered by years of duty, eyes perpetually serious. His usually commanding presence softened slightly when he saw Scout, the famous rescue dog whose legend had grown overnight. Hank approached slowly, keeping his voice low out of respect for Scout's fragile state. "Claire, I appreciate Scout's instincts as much as anyone, but it's too dangerous out there right now. Let the search teams handle it." Claire glanced briefly toward Hank, noting genuine concern etched deeply into his lined face. She knew he meant well, yet Scout's persistent stare and gentle paw nudging her hand left little doubt of his intentions. "Scout knows something," she said quietly, voice firm with resolve. "I can't ignore him." Reluctantly, Hank nodded, recognizing determination in Claire's steady gaze. "Be careful," he cautioned, stepping aside as Claire quickly prepared for the journey. "I'll keep everyone on standby." Within moments, Claire donned her warmest coat and boots, carefully helping Scout rise. Though still weak, Scout's determination seemed to grant him renewed energy, guiding Claire out into the frozen morning. Behind them, Jess watched anxiously, hands clasped tightly together, silently offering prayers for their safe return. Scout limped slowly but purposefully toward the forest's edge, his nose hovering just above snowdrifts, tracking something Claire couldn't perceive. The bitter wind sliced sharply, stinging Claire's face as they pressed onward. Soon, familiar landmarks vanished beneath layers of snow, replaced by dense clusters of towering pines, branches groaning beneath their heavy white burdens. Claire's pulse quickened sharply, memories surfacing with brutal clarity. The forest before her resembled the one where Anna had been lost, and fear clawed fiercely at her resolve. Scout paused briefly, sensing Claire's hesitation, his gentle eyes meeting hers reassuringly. Drawing strength from his courage, Claire moved steadily forward. After nearly an hour, Scout's pace slowed, tension coiling visibly within his exhausted body. Claire felt worry twist painfully in her chest. Concerned the strain was too great for him. Just as doubt began to gnaw at her, Scout barked sharply, a clear signal. Claire froze, breath fogging in the frigid air, eyes scanning quickly for movement. Then she saw it, faint, partially obscured footprints leading toward a rocky hillside, barely visible beneath recent snowfall. Scout limped eagerly toward the tracks, urgency radiating from his tense frame. Claire followed carefully, hope igniting fiercely in her heart. The footprints were fresh, leading toward a shadowy alcove tucked discreetly between boulders. Scout stopped abruptly at the entrance, growling lowly, his fur bristling slightly. Claire approached cautiously, heart pounding. Suddenly, a quiet, fearful voice echoed faintly from within the alcove. "Help, please!" Claire's breath caught sharply, recognizing immediately the voice of Alice Reynolds. Moving quickly, Claire knelt, carefully peering inside. Alice sat huddled against the cave wall, small body trembling violently beneath her torn winter coat. Her pale blonde hair was tangled, cheeks flushed from cold exposure, green eyes wide and terrified. Claire's voice softened instinctively, extending her hand gently. "Alice, it's Claire. You're safe now." Alice hesitated briefly, then reached desperately toward Claire, relief flooding her young features. "I knew Scout would find me," she whispered, clinging tightly as Claire wrapped her warmly in extra blankets. "Scout knew exactly where you were," Claire assured gently, glancing gratefully toward the dog, who now lay panting heavily at the cave's entrance. Alice's eyes filled with tears, gratitude shining brightly as she whispered shakily, "Thank you, Scout." Before Claire could speak again, Scout's ears pricked suddenly, attention snapping urgently toward the thick trees behind them. A faint, muffled sound drifted through the crisp air, a voice calling weakly for help. Claire's heart lurched painfully, recognizing Ethan's voice immediately. She moved swiftly, securing Alice safely inside the cave beneath extra blankets. "Stay here," she instructed gently, heart hammering fiercely. "I'll be right back." Claire followed Scout deeper into the dense trees, anxiety surging with each step. They soon found Ethan slumped heavily against a fallen tree trunk, face pale, lips tinged blue from exposure. Ethan's dark hair was matted with snow and blood from a deep cut above his temple. He blinked slowly, disoriented but relieved seeing Claire approach quickly. "You found me," Ethan murmured weakly, managing a faint, exhausted smile. Claire knelt immediately beside him, assessing injuries swiftly. Scout lay beside Ethan, warmth radiating comfortingly from his presence. "We'll get you home," Claire assured Ethan softly, voice firm despite internal panic at his condition. Carefully, she helped Ethan rise, supporting him carefully, their progress agonizingly slow through deepening snow. Scout limped loyally beside them, silently encouraging with gentle nudges whenever Ethan stumbled. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they returned to the alcove where Alice waited anxiously. Claire guided Ethan gently beside Alice, both now wrapped tightly beneath shared blankets, warmth slowly restoring color to their pale faces. Claire exhaled shakily, relief flooding through every fiber of her being. As they waited together within shelter, Scout lay exhausted yet peacefully beside Claire, eyes half closed contentedly, knowing he'd fulfilled his purpose. Claire stroked Scout's fur gently, heart swelling with immense gratitude for his resilience and courage. Just then, footsteps approached quickly outside, voices shouting urgently. Sheriff Hank Larson and Deputy Sam Carter appeared, accompanied by Frank and several rescuers, relief evident on their weary faces seeing Claire, Ethan, and Alice safe. Hank's deep voice softened gratefully. "You did it, Claire. All of you." Claire smiled faintly, exhaustion weighing heavily, yet overshadowed by immense satisfaction and hope. Ethan's weak grip tightened gently around Claire's hand, silently promising enduring gratitude and affection. Back at the clinic, Jess met them anxiously, quickly caring tenderly for Ethan and Alice. Scout lay quietly beside Claire, chest rising evenly, his strength gradually returning. Claire watched quietly, overwhelmed by powerful emotions, gratitude, relief, and renewed hope intertwining fiercely. Later that evening, Claire sat quietly beside Scout, gently stroking his warm fur as Ethan rested nearby, recovering steadily. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years, recognizing clearly Scout's return had awakened something profoundly healing within herself. Scout's unwavering loyalty had guided her beyond past tragedies toward a hopeful future filled with courage and connection. Claire knew challenges remained ahead, yet tonight marked a significant turning point, a fragile yet undeniable victory over fear, loss, and isolation. Scout had returned not merely to save Alice or Ethan, but to remind Claire of her strength, resilience. As the blizzard reached its furious crescendo, Claire Sheridan felt the brutal sting of snow cutting sharply against her face. Her breath formed frozen plumes as exhaustion gripped her limbs, each step forward feeling heavier than the last. Beside her, Ethan Marshall struggled valiantly, one arm protectively around young Alice Reynolds, whose pale face pressed weakly against his chest. The young girl's breathing was shallow, her tiny frame shivering uncontrollably beneath Ethan's coat. Claire glanced back anxiously, eyes meeting Ethan's steady yet strained gaze. The fear she saw mirrored in his eyes told her everything. Time was running dangerously short. Scout, despite his recent wounds and staggering fatigue, limped resolutely ahead, his thick fur crusted heavily with ice. The injured German shepherd paused periodically, turning back to ensure they followed closely. His amber eyes, bright even through the fierce storm, conveyed determination and trust, anchoring Claire's waning resolve. Scout had brought them this far. Now, their survival hinged entirely upon his unwavering guidance. Visibility deteriorated rapidly as gusts roared viciously around them, swallowing landmarks into endless swirls of white. Claire's pulse quickened with dread as disorientation set in. The familiar path toward Silver Pine had vanished completely beneath heavy drifts. Ethan stumbled suddenly, knees sinking deep into the powdery snow, breath hitching painfully. Claire caught him swiftly, steadying him and Alice gently. "We have to keep going," Claire urged fiercely, voice nearly lost within the howling winds. Ethan nodded weakly, sheer determination etched deeply into his battered face. Suddenly, Scout barked sharply, a sound filled with urgency and command. His gaze locked onto Claire's, silently demanding trust. Without hesitation, she moved forward, grasping Ethan's arm tightly. They followed Scout cautiously, heartbeats quickening as he led them along a narrow, unseen trail hidden beneath the snow. Hours passed agonizingly slow, each minute stretching endlessly beneath the relentless blizzard. Just as despair began gripping Claire's exhausted heart, Scout paused abruptly, ears perking eagerly forward. Ahead, faint yet unmistakable through swirling snowflakes, lights flickered warmly, a beacon piercing through darkness. Tears burned Claire's eyes, gratitude overwhelming her senses. Scout had guided them safely home. Sheriff Hank Larson and Deputy Sam Carter rushed forward immediately, followed closely by Jess Richards, whose auburn curls flew wildly beneath a knitted cap, face flushed deeply with anxiety and relief. They swiftly enveloped Claire, Ethan, Alice, and Scout in warmth and safety, their relieved shouts muffled amidst gusting winds. Inside Silver Pine's small clinic, warmth and calm replaced winter's cruelty. Maggie Reynolds, Alice's gentle mother, arrived swiftly, sobbing quietly with profound relief, cradling Alice tightly against her chest. Ethan was carefully tended to, his color gradually returning beneath blankets, and Jess's watchful care. Scout lay motionless, breathing shallow but steady, surrounded lovingly by soft blankets. Claire knelt beside him, gently stroking his matted fur, tears quietly tracing her cheeks. Sheriff Hank approached softly, voice gruff yet tender. "He saved us all," Claire whispered hoarsely, meeting Hank's compassionate gaze. Hank nodded gravely, deeply moved. "Scout's a true hero," he confirmed quietly. Over several tense days, Scout hovered precariously between life and death. Claire remained steadfastly beside him, refusing rest despite overwhelming exhaustion. Ethan, still healing from his injuries, sat quietly nearby, silently offering unwavering support. Together, their presence seemed to strengthen Scout's fragile grip on life. Finally, early one peaceful morning, Scout's eyes fluttered open weakly, fixing gently upon Claire. She exhaled shakily, relief flooding her weary heart. Scout's remarkable recovery soon became Silver Pine's proudest story, his loyalty and courage inspiring deep reverence and respect within the entire community. Claire, profoundly moved by Scout's bravery and her own rediscovered strength, found purpose blossoming clearly within her heart. Determined to honor Scout's legacy, she envisioned a center dedicated not only to rescuing animals, but also supporting families searching desperately for missing children. A sanctuary built firmly upon hope, courage, and compassion. 2 months later, under bright skies painted cheerfully with early spring warmth, Silver Pine gathered joyously to witness the opening of Scout's legacy. Standing proudly beside Claire was Ethan, healed and quietly supportive, their shared bond stronger through hardship and hope. Scout sat contentedly at Claire's feet, his amber eyes gazing calmly across the gathered townsfolk, the scars beneath his thick fur now a testament to resilience and bravery. As Claire stepped forward, voice clear and resolute, the gathered crowd fell respectfully silent. "Scout returned to us when hope seemed lost," she began gently, eyes softening with deep affection. "His courage guided us safely through darkness, reminding us of resilience, trust, and compassion. Scout's legacy honors not only his bravery, but also offers comfort and support to those facing unimaginable fears." Applause erupted enthusiastically, Silver Pine's gratitude pouring forth openly. Jess approached warmly afterward, her vibrant energy restored, eyes dancing brightly. "Scout changed us all," she murmured warmly, smiling affectionately at Claire. Claire nodded, heart swelling proudly, glancing tenderly toward Ethan, whose calm presence remained steadily beside her. Together, they had faced haunting past tragedies, emerging stronger, resilient, and deeply connected. Scout's unwavering loyalty had not only saved their lives, but rekindled hope and purpose within their hearts. Nearby, Scout lay peacefully beneath warm sunlight, gentle breeze rustling softly through his thick coat. He glanced upward, amber eyes meeting Claire's warmly, a silent understanding passing effortlessly between them. Scout's legacy would endure proudly, not merely through buildings or plaques, but through lives profoundly touched, transformed, and healed through compassion and courage. As Silver Pine celebrated joyously beneath warm spring skies, Claire knew clearly Scout had guided them far beyond storms or darkness. He'd led them toward healing, strength, and enduring hope. Scout's legacy had become a living testament to loyalty, bravery, and the profound power of unconditional love. In that gentle moment beneath sunlight and blue skies, Claire felt peace settle warmly within her soul, knowing ghosts of past pain no longer held power. Scout had returned light, warmth, and love into her life, reminding them all that even darkest storms eventually yield brightly to returning sunlight. Hope restored once more. In life, storms come to each of us, not always in snow or wind, but often in moments of fear, doubt, and loss. Just like Claire, Ethan, and Scout, we sometimes feel lost, alone, or trapped in our own personal blizzards. But remember, There's always a path back home, a light guiding us through the darkest times. Loyalty, courage, and compassion can help us weather any storm. Have you ever had someone like Scout in your life, guiding you safely through tough moments? I'd love for you to share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel for more inspirational tales. May God bless you and guide you safely through every storm you face. If you believe that hope, courage, and love can overcome anything, please comment amen below.